Hello, Art100. Welcome to your overview video for Lesson 3. I'm hiding behind one of my houseplants today because this is your lesson on art about nature, and I cannot record a video outside very well. I just tried and it didn't work, so this is as nature as we get. I'm really excited about this particular lesson. There is so much interesting stuff to talk about when it comes to images of nature. You probably think of landscape painting right away. And so did I, and there's a lot of that in your lesson. But when I first started working on this lesson, the artist who kept popping into my head was not a landscape painter at all. So I'm going to start this overview by just showing you her work. Her name is Agnes Dennis, born 1938, as you can see. And this is a piece that she did in New York City in the 80s that's called Wheatfield. Or it's called Wheatfield, A Confrontation. It's this pretty amazing thing. You can see it's from 1982, where she took this very expensive urban real estate that was temporarily a landfill in Battery Park and turned it into this wheat field. So she grew an entire field of wheat in the middle of Manhattan in the shadow of the World Trade Center towers, which had just been built. You can see there's all this detritus in the background, which was left over from the construction site, and she used it in growing this field. And so this is art about nature, but it's not pictures of anything, right? It's not like happy trees from Bob Ross or beautiful images of the ocean that we all love to look at. Instead, she's actually bringing nature into the city. It was a really powerful piece, and it was something where she couldn't do it on her own. You know, this is really labor intensive. It's a giant thing to do. But she just started doing it, and people helped. People in the community, people who lived around there, they saw what she was doing and got interested. So she ended up having a whole community project happen here where everybody was creating this wheat field together. It took a couple months. Eventually, it got to the point where it could be harvested. Here's a few images of it when it's at its most kind of mature point. I really like this one, because you can see how beautiful the wheat is, and then just the strong contrast with the World Trade Center towers in the background. Now this was temporary, of course. Nobody's going to let Manhattan real estate be a wheat field permanently. And so it was harvested. She harvested it along with all of her volunteers. And then they used the wheat to feed people. And they also had it travel as part of an exhibition. And people could take elements of it and then plant their own wheat fields where they lived. Here's a really cool view of it. If you get it from exactly the right angle, I guess you could see the Statue of Liberty. This is the only photo I could find like this, but it really is quite the amazing contrast. It looks like the Statue of Liberty is just floating in this sea of wheat. This one here on the left by Thomas Cole, that's your more kind of traditional art about nature. That's a landscape painting, a really lovely one, I think, from a series that this artist did called the Course of Empire series. I wanted to compare him here because he is a New York painter, and she did this particular piece in New York. So we've got two New York artists here. Thomas Cole, he's actually British, but he spent most of his time working in New York. And he did a whole series that showed how human civilization expanded and took over nature. And then at the end, he kind of suggested that we would be outlasted by nature and nature would retake over. So nature would come back and encroach on the cities and come back and, I guess, just refill the spaces that our civilization might leave behind. It was kind of like almost like a metaphor, I think, or an allegory talking about what might happen in the future if we're not careful about how we preserve nature. So here you can see it's called Desolation, and he shows these old buildings from some once great civilization, and they're being retaken by nature. This is the end of the series. You see the whole process coming up to this in 5 different paintings he did. But it just reminds me of the Agnes Dennis piece, if you look at the two together. Although hers, I think, is a little more hopeful. She does call it a confrontation, though, so you've definitely got some kind of a sense of these forces being at odds with each other. Okay, so you'll read more about this series from Cole and Agnes Dennis's pieces when you get into the lesson, but that was just a little bit of a taste of what you can expect. Some of the other styles that we'll look at and other trends We'll look at some Song Dynasty landscape painting from China, like this really beautiful small painted fan from Lankai, showing this tiny poet being kind of engulfed in this natural scene. There's the man. We'll also look at some artworks from the Romantic style from Europe, including this really beautiful one called Monk by the Sea by German artist Caspar David Friedrich. It shows this monk staring out into the horizon. You've probably all stood on the beach in San Diego at some point and stared into the distance like this. And then Theodore Géricault, a French Romantic artist, who uses man's battle against nature, here people trying to survive on a raft while there's this big storm in the background, as a kind of metaphor for some of the political turmoil at the time. We'll also see the French Impressionists. You might know these works. They're quite popular. And they were often about nature, but they were more just about nature's beauty and the ability that nature had to just produce amazing kind of colors and highlights and shadows. So a really different take on how nature can be used in art. We'll also look at some contemporary artists, including Julie Méritou, and this piece, which is two enormous abstract paintings that are based on a whole history of American landscape. Here we see them installed in the lobby of the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. So that is just a few. We'll look at a lot more things than that, but it gives you a sense of the scope of it and what you have to look forward to. And here's the actual tasks that you have for this lesson. So you're on the page right now where you've got a to-do list. So you see my little video. Under it, you see your to-do list. And that's going to remind you that you should start with your readings and videos. So there's a set of readings and videos to take notes on. Some of it is stuff that I wrote, but then within that, I have links to articles and videos from other people. You should be taking notes on all of those, the stuff that I wrote as well as the stuff from outside sources. You have a study guide right after that. I would recommend reviewing the study guide even before you start with the readings because it will help you kind of like focus what you want to take notes on. Then you have a quiz. The quiz questions are all explained on the study guide, so definitely make sure you've got that study guide down before you go on to the quiz. And then after that, you have an assignment. For this lesson, you actually have 3 options to choose from. 2 of them are artworks that you'll make that are related to this lesson. They also both have some written elements, but it's primarily artworks. And then you also have an all-written option that involves some research. So you'll be able to choose from those. The instructions are very clearly explained here in this lesson in your Canvas module. So that is what's coming. If you have any questions about it as you move through it, feel free to reach out as always. And I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.